Have you ever wanted to just stop using social media for a while? I know I have, and so I have. I've just taken a whole month off from social media, and today I'm going to talk about why I did it, how I did it, and some advice for you if you would like to do the same without tanking your social life or your business in the process. G'day everyone, my name is Jess Van Den, and if you don't know me, I have been running my own successful handmade business, Epheriell, since 2008, going full-time in 2010, and I've been self-employed for a whole decade. I also run Create and Thrive, which is a blog, podcast, YouTube channel, membership site, courses, basically an educational hub for makers who want to learn how to turn their handmade hobby into a thriving, profitable business. Okay, so I took the whole month of July 2020 off from social media. As I record this, it's the 3rd of August 2020, and I actually haven't gotten back on yet. I lie, I did briefly check Twitter, and today I haven't gone on Instagram yet, I haven't gone back on Facebook. Honestly, I don't really want to, but I'll talk about that in today's video. So I took the whole month of July off from social media and also from content creation, which is kind of a separate thing. If you want me to do more about that, please let me know and I will. Disclaimer on this, the one thing I did still access was my Facebook group for my Thriver Circle, which is my membership community for makers. But I did, in that July month, I did actually take 2 whole weeks off, and I did have someone in there taking care of things for me while I was away. So that was my one thing that I did do. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's the forum for my members, and I didn't want to neglect them for a whole month. So what I did, and I'll talk about how I prepared and implemented that, how I managed to, spend time on that particular part of Facebook without getting sucked into the rest of Facebook. I'll talk about more later in the video, but I just want to get that out of the way first to make sure I was clear that that was the one thing that I did do. So I got off Twitter, I got off Instagram, I got off Facebook, and those are really the only social media that I use. YouTube, I stayed off my business account, so I didn't see any comments or anything like that. I did still use YouTube because I use it like in the evenings. I watch ASMR videos to relax sometimes, and I'm on a journey of like learning strength training and stuff, and I follow a lot of people on there, and I do workouts and stuff, so I didn't want to cut that out for that reason. But I've never felt like sucked into YouTube, if you know what I mean. Like, I use it for specific tools. It's just kind of like I would use Google. So I didn't cut YouTube out, even though I know it is a form of social media. I just kind of stayed away from the comments. So that was my sort of ecosystem there. So what was my impetus for deciding to do this? Well, I used to love social media. So back in, the old days, in the late noughts, so 2007, 2008, I think I kind of got on Facebook and Twitter because nothing else existed then. They were the social media. I really enjoyed Twitter for a couple of years. I made a lot of friends and connections through it. It was really a real asset to my business back then. Same with Facebook. It worked really well for me for the first few years. But kind of as the 2010s, the teens came along and the years rolled by, I found myself less and less enamored by social media. I kind of, over the last few years, I very rarely post on my private, so my Facebook profile. I very rarely post there anymore. I just didn't enjoy it really anymore, and especially places like Twitter, I felt that's kind of was going in a unpleasant direction that didn't really serve me or my mental health very well. Same with Facebook in a lot of ways. So over the last few years, I've pulled away from it. I already have implemented things like about a year ago, I just purged everybody I was following on Twitter. I just deleted everybody I was following and started from scratch and started, cherry picking people who were talking about stuff I was really interested in. On Facebook, I started. Sorry, friends and family, I do love you all, but I actually started unfollowing everybody, like everyone I'm friends, all my family. I unfollowed them all my pages, I unfollowed them all. And I actually have on my computer, I have a blocker. So when I open Facebook, I have no feed. I don't see a Facebook feed ever. So I only get on Facebook for work, and if I want to like use a group or look up a friend or someone in my family and talk to them and see how they're going, right? So I've eliminated a lot of those things already from my life. I've kind of minimized my usage of social media, but I wanted a real break. Like I was feeling, especially now this video is specifically kind of talking from a perspective of someone with an online business that is their livelihood. So for me, social media is part of my work. So as you can tell from what I've just talked about, in my personal life, I really don't use it anymore. I talk to my friends via WhatsApp or on the phone or whatever. Like I still have a lot of friends and cultivate things, and we use like Facebook events to get people together, or we did pre-COVID times. But I just was feeling the pressure of social media, you know, the constant grind of having to publish to Instagram every week and put stuff on Facebook, and I just wanted a break from it. And I've done social media sabbaticals before. My first one was a number of years ago now, and it was a huge mental shift for me when I did that the first time, because I was definitely kind of addicted to social media at that point in time, and it changed my relationship with it completely. And since then I've taken digital detoxes on a regular basis, but I've never done a whole month. And I was like, right, it's time to do it. It's time to just give it a crack and do a whole month off social media. And I'm really glad I did. So that was kind of the theory behind why I wanted to do it. Let's talk about how I prepared for it. Okay, so I didn't just disappear off social media, off especially my business channels, and even on my personal like Facebook page, because some people, like my mum, would often message me on Facebook Messenger, right? That's how we tended to talk. But I didn't want Messenger, I didn't want anything. The only things I kept to like communicate was WhatsApp, because it's literally just a message, it's like messaging on, you know, SMS sort of thing, except via the internet. So I kept WhatsApp because I talk to my actual friends, my real life people I know on WhatsApp. So a list of things I did on my personal Facebook page. I put a note up saying, you know, I'm doing this, and I, you know, instructed people how to contact me, phone or SMS, because the people who follow me in my private thing have those things, or email. So I kind of told people what was going on, so they knew. Same with my business channels. I sent an email out to my Create and Thrive list to tell them what was going on. I published a blog post. I created graphics, like a swipe graphics that actually explained what I was doing, so that I was taking this month off. You know, I'll be gone for this long. If you need to contact me, here's how to do it. So giving people my email address so that they could still get in touch with me. So I created that, and I put a notice on, you know, my Instagram bio and on all of those social media. I put up that graphic explaining what was going on and that I was going to be taking a break. The next thing I did was uninstall all my social media apps off my phone, so that they're not there to be tempted by. Also, you need to log out of all your social media platforms on your browsers on your device and on your browser on your computer. So that you don't just automatically, if you happen to open it, you're not automatically logged in. So you go and I went and logged out of everything. I even went to the extent of, because I use LastPass to manage my passwords, like a lot of people do, I went to the extent of deleting them, deleting the social media from my LastPass, obviously after writing them down somewhere. So I wrote all my passwords, you know, and gone to login details down for like Instagram and Twitter and stuff, and then I got rid of them off my LastPass, so there's no way I could just log in easily on my device. So you could also block them if you wanted to kind of go the extra step. Use something like I use a plugin called Stay Focused on Chrome to actually block websites out at certain times and on certain days. So I didn't actually do that, because all of these other steps were enough for me to keep me off social media, except for, of course, I still had Facebook because of the group thing, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. So you could do that if you really don't trust yourself to be able to stick to it. You can do that as well. So that's a whole bunch of steps that I took, and that you might want to consider taking as well if you do decide to have a social media break like I did. So implementation. So this is when I actually, day one, the 1st of July 2020, So I did all the preparation stuff beforehand. One more thing I did do, because I knew that I was still going to be getting on Facebook on my computer, I took it off my phone completely so that I would only be getting on it when I was sitting at work, doing work. What I did is I went through all my groups and pages and everything and made sure that I turned off notifications for everything, so that I wasn't getting notifications for any groups I was part of or any pages or anything like that, so that the only notifications I was getting on Facebook were from my Facebook group for my community. So that kept things real easy, because I didn't have to avoid looking at, other notifications and getting maybe sucked into them. So that was the step I took to allow me to still access Facebook as a ecosystem without getting sucked into it, is turning those all off. You could also, unfollow all pages and unfollow all your friends and family and stuff like that as well. And those are all ways you can minimize your ability to get sucked in while still being able to use it for what you might need to use it for. But for most of you who don't have a community or group like that, that is a paid membership, if you have a free group, just take a month off. They're not paying to be there. You'll be back, or get somebody to go in there as your community manager and take care of it for you for a month. That's the one sort of little tricky thing I did there. So this wasn't my first social media sabbatical, so I kind of had a bit of an idea of how it was going to go. Look, the first time I did it, it was really hard. The second, third time got progressively easier. I probably would recommend, if you've never done a shorter social media sabbatical before, start with a long weekend, or even a weekend or a day. I don't know how into it you are, but pick a shorter amount of time to do first to make it easier for yourself. Maybe just a week, and see how you go with that. If you think you're going to get withdrawals from it, if it's a huge part of your life, by this stage in my life, social media is not a big part of my life, whereas back then when I first did it, it really was. So kind of take that into account. If you're going cold turkey, it can be quite challenging the first time that you do it. So it was super challenging. Obviously, the main point of implementation is to stay off social media, which it was not hard for me. I did not miss it at all. I didn't struggle not being able to access it. There were a couple of times where I was like, I wonder, if this particular event is on. And of course, everybody uses Facebook events these days to organize things. I came across something on Google and they had a Facebook page, and I'm like, for something like that, like a menu for a restaurant, they might only have it on their Facebook page. I'd probably make an exception for that, really, because you're using it for a specific purpose. But yeah, there might be a few things that you find challenging. If your whole social life is based on social media, you're going to find it challenging, obviously. But my genuine social life does not live on social media, so that was okay for me. Being the age I am, I talk to my friends via other methods. So yeah, a good thing to do is to have a replacement activity. Especially if you use social media a lot, or if you have your phone around and you have the habit of reaching for your phone and going to a social media app when you are bored, then you are going to be finding yourself still doing that, but not having anything to reach for, which you might find really jarring and difficult. So it might be helpful to have a filler activity there. And I did this. So just because of that habit, right? So I actually made a list of news outlets and essay sites that I enjoy reading. So you might want to make a list of blogs you enjoy reading or something like that, or, something else that you can kind of go to fill in those little pockets of time that you've previously used social media to fill. So I would go, okay, well, I've got 10 minutes sort of waiting for something. I'll just grab my phone and check the news out, or I'll grab my phone and read an essay. And that worked really well for me. So not only, did I have something to do when that impulse struck, it was educational and interesting. And I actually found over time that it decreased. For some periods of time, I just didn't even know where my phone was for days, because we live in COVID times and not leaving the house. So that was really nice. And you might find the same thing happening for you. But if you are really consistently on your phone like checking it all the time. Having some sort of activity like that, or a game you play or something, as long as you're not going to get sucked into that like all the time. But whatever, just think about that and think about something that you might want to put in place of the social media for those times you do pick it up. Or you might just want to go, I don't want to be picking my phone up all the time, so I'm just not going to have anything, and that's going to just be something I'm going to have to deal with. So the big thing here as well is to pay attention to how often you do reach for your phone. It definitely decreased over the month for me. I just wasn't reaching for it as often. I wasn't on there as much. I was doing other things, and it was great. I definitely felt untethered from it in a very real way that, especially a couple of years ago, I would have freaked out about, because I felt like I always had to be available, I always had to be on. I've moved on from that way of working in business, and I've talked about that on other podcasts and other videos about like setting boundaries for yourself and for other people and expectations and whatnot. Really, really powerful and really important if you want to be doing this for the long term, otherwise you'll burn out. So that was a really interesting thing as well, watching how often I reached my phone and how that decreased over time. So what was the outcome for me? Well, I, as you can probably tell by now, really enjoyed having the break. I haven't even gotten back on. I will get back on. I'll put Instagram back on my phone, but I might only do it maybe once a week. I'll put it on in there and I'll upload, my latest video or podcast so that my followers can check it out if they're interested. But I don't, I was feeling a lot of guilt around not being as engaged and as active as I should be, especially on Instagram, because Instagram is really a hub for the handmade community. And I'm not going to put pressure on myself in that way, because my business was fine. Both of my businesses were fine. My jewelry business went along as per normal, because as I said, actually I didn't say, I said it in my last video, about 95 to 98% of my sales come from Google search, Etsy search, Pinterest, and my mailing list anyway. For my jewelry business, I really haven't been super active on social media for years now. I'm still there and I do post sometimes, but it's not really a big part of my marketing strategy at all. It was more so for Create and Thrive, doing social media, doing Instagram stories and stuff like that. Because sometimes I do enjoy it. Sometimes it's fun to share the behind the scenes and share what's going on and talk about things that are coming up for the business. So I think I'm just going forward, I'm going to be a little bit more easy on myself and just go, well, I'll share the stuff when I want to, when it seems relevant, and not push myself to be, putting content out there on social media on a regular basis, because it's just not a natural thing for me and it's not a natural part of my business. I'd rather be spending time making videos and making podcasts and working on the SEO for those, sending them out to my mailing list, because I send it out every week on my mailing list, and working on growing my mailing list, because honestly for Create and Thrive, that's where most of my students come from. They find me via YouTube or my podcast or my blog. They get on my mailing list and then they come and do one of my courses or join me in the Thriver Circle. And I guess while I knew that was the case, it really reminded me of that those are the platforms I need to be spending my time and effort on, because those are the places that are really bringing me the people who do support me in my business. So I think that was a nice reminder for me. So I within the first few days even of getting off all social media, I definitely found myself feeling calmer. My mind was more calm. I wasn't feeling that constant distraction to be going and checking social media when I was working. I wasn't feeling distracted to go and do that because I couldn't. So I was much more focused. Obviously I had a whole 2 weeks. I had a whole 2 week holiday in the middle of this as well, 2 weeks off work completely, which is the first time in possibly forever since I started my businesses that I've had 2 whole weeks completely off without having to worry about emails or anything like that. So that was pretty fantastic and I really enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time. What did I do? Well, I did my normal work during normal time, although I did, as I said, I took the month off from content creation as well. So I did some planning, I did some behind the scenes work that I'd been neglecting. And then I did a whole lot of other things. I did a lot of hiking and walking and reading books and reading novels and learning more about my hobbies, doing some gardening, exercise. I went to a lot of cafes here in Queensland in July, our COVID restriction, we had pretty much no cases, so we were mostly free to be as normal. So I took advantage of that with, really an understanding that this might change. I went out, took myself out to a lot of different cafes and restaurants to support my local businesses in my community, and really just enjoyed living without feeling like I had to document my living for the internet. Which, in the past I would have been doing Instagram stories and taking photos while I was on my hikes and stuff, and I was just not doing any of that. I was just living in the moment, living for myself and enjoying my life without feeling the need to share it. And that was a real relief, and I really enjoyed it. But of course, I'm an introvert. I'm an only child. I'm quite happy spending time by myself, with myself. So it's not surprising that for me that was quite enjoyable and quite relaxing. It's not going to be like that for everybody. If you are an extrovert, if you are someone who really gets energy from other people and interacting with other people, and of course if you are in a lockdown situation at the moment with COVID, social media might be your lifeline right now, and it might be the only way that you are connecting with people and in your community and finding out what's going on. So, the point of this video is not to hate on social media if it works for you. The point of this video is to tell you that if it doesn't work for you, you can go away from it for a while, or maybe even completely, and still have a successful business and a happy life as well. In fact, I think in a lot of ways, disconnecting, especially just for a period of time from social media and other people's thoughts and issues and questions bombarding you all the time, it gives you the chance to really be with yourself, in yourself, spending more time in the present moment, which really is all we have, isn't it? So it worked really well for me. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely something I'm going to be doing yearly from now on. I'll be taking a month off every year, if not more. It's something that I will be incorporating into my business practice and into my life going forward. And I really enjoyed it, and I think it's really paid off for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video and on this process. Have you ever taken a digital sabbatical? Have you taken a social media sabbatical? Are you planning on taking one after watching this video? Let me know in the comments below, or if you have any questions about the process. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It helps other people to find this video, and also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future videos on how to have a successful and profitable handmade business, because that's what I'm all about here on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoy bringing these videos to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch them. So thank you very much, and you'll see me again soon. Bye for now.